How's it going, everybody? Happy, Tuesday? Forgive me if I stumble over my words. I flew the red eye in from New York. But very excited to be here. Sarah and Filecoin Protocol Labs, thank you for having me. The greater concept I think I wanted to touch on that my co-founder and I are trying to address is user onboarding. It's something that I kind of felt very painfully when I came into the space at the end of 2020. Extensively, I think pretty much everybody at some point or another has run into. It was good. Effectively, I felt it very, very viscerally when I got involved in the space, and I think everybody at some point has encountered friction when, getting involved with a new protocol, a blockchain, whatever it might be. And so I think just as a show of hands, who has felt that very, very real pain point at some point or another throughout their journey within the Web3 space? 2 hands, love that. Okay, so it's definitely there. I think just to set the stage, right, we've had a really, really good run of a few years, kind of dovetailed with some interesting PR nightmares with NFTs, which kind of led into the downturn, obviously, which we all felt, between 2022, 2023, and into beginning of this year. I think we can all agree that majority of the volume happens across DeFi, centralized exchanges. It's all mostly in the financial and transactional sense. And I think a lot of that has to do with, one, we're building way too much infra, and two, we don't do a very good job of speaking to new users and making it very, very easy for them to get from 0 to 1, to simply understand where is, kind of that point of resonance, where is that commonality. As I said, very, very complex terminology. I think there's this vernacular gatekeeping that's done when people are writing resources. They're not made to be easily understandable, right? You're not using language that a Web2 user would understand. And I think that's problem number one. Number two is you don't really have a clear sense of authorities where you can turn to. 3, regulatory issues. You saw this year alone, last year as well. And 4 is that UX problem, which is, I think, really where you see probably a lot of the churn happen, and probably that opportunity to drive greater, activation and retention. And I think in terms of what is out there, you have some really, really wonderful resource threads on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. You have some programs that are very, very specific if you're getting into the building space, a developer that tend to be specific towards a language, towards a blockchain, towards a protocol, et cetera. The existing kind of options like Perplexity, ChatGPT are very broad. Oftentimes they hallucinate. You run into issues on that front as well. And then finally, as I've mentioned already, the existing resources are just not easily accessible. They're not, made to be written for new users. And so with that, let's see if you guys try and scan this code. Yeah. So if you guys just want to answer that. All right. 3 more seconds. Okay. This is more of a user input, but just anybody want to throw out there what they think the most used kind of surface area from daily active users looks like? Just to give you guys the options again. Out of these, anybody want to take a wild guess? Yeah, without question, right? Which is interesting, to say the least, that it's still, yes, ma'am.
As an ex-consensus person, that's true, but how many wallets do you have?
3 MetaMasks.
Okay.
Yeah. And so actually, I think this is, so to go back to that original graph at the very beginning, right? This is the graph everybody shows. They're like, oh, crypto adoption's, 1-to-1 with the internet. It's like, no, it's not. And in terms of unique users, it's much, much less than. And I think in that sense, it's like we need to take a step back and realize that we need to simplify this across the board in order to get a broader kind of inflection point into the space. I think it's sad. At the end of 2022, we had a really, really nice run of energy. Like it felt like we had kind of crossed the gap, and then everything kind of, hit that sad point. And I really, really strongly believe that if we take a step back and simplify it to a point where you're able to ask any question, whether it's quantitative, qualitative, it doesn't matter. You're able to interact with a chatbot that is powered by LLMs, with a background of kind of inference and history that supports that, but is depth and breadth and specificity within the Web3 space. And I think Filecoin and Protocol Labs, IPFS are all great kind of areas to start there. What we're kind of trying to build with Flow is to be able to get those early users to be able to ask questions of developer documentation, of specific dependencies that you need to deploy a contract for the very first time, even down to a layer of what should I build? I want to query kind of the community forums and get a sense of what are the pain points or the problems that users may have been having over the last 30, 60, 90 days. Has anybody actually started building a solution there? Can I collaborate? Is there opportunity for open source contributions? And then I think as you kind of ladder up within the space, you have existing users that maybe use Dune Analytics or Masari or some other kind of quant tool. Maybe they have collaborators. Maybe they themselves are non-technical. They don't write SQL queries. Like, I'm not going to go and update the queries on the Dune side of things because I'm going to break it, guaranteed. And I'm no longer going to be able to get that data that is so valuable for me. Again, kind of gatekeeping, a little bit of a technical nuance, but that data should be accessible for anybody that wants to kind of query it or leverage it, index it. That unlocks kind of a whole new layer of insight for those users that don't have the same, technical ability as others within the space. And I think the last piece is the internal teams that, are offering this tooling to their communities. They get a special insight that is proprietary and unique to their own use cases to then, optimize their needs accordingly based on what their community is kind of asking for. Kind of rinsed and repeated on that. This is my Popple, so if you want to connect on Telegram, LinkedIn, Slack, you name it, you're welcome to.